Hey everyone, it's Bree. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back in another video, and I am here to talk about something that's kind of been on my mind. And I didn't necessarily want to say anything because I'm like, I'm gonna sound so old saying this. I'm only 23, but it's been like a recent topic of conversation with certain things that have happened, and so I figured why not put my little 2 cents in. And so essentially, there's been a conversation about some of the current role models that kids have nowadays. And so although, like, yes, it's up to the parents to decide what their children consume in terms of, you know, music and other forms of media, it's kind of hard to shield your child from everything, right? It was a little bit easier back in the day, but I feel like now, like, everything is everywhere. Everyone has a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, your friend has a cell phone. Like, it's everything is everywhere nowadays. It's kind of hard to hide your child from anything nowadays. And so with that being said, a lot of the celebrity culture today, it can be seen as kind of toxic, you know, like a lot of things are very sexualized. And you have a lot of celebrities out there that, you know, may not present themselves in the best way. They may not promote certain things that, you know, they should be promoting, and that's the kind of content that kids are kind of soaking up today. I don't think the issue is necessarily with the celebrities, because again, you can't expect all celebrities to be super child friendly in the event that your child comes across it. The same thing with YouTubers. Like, I've heard of parents complaining about certain YouTubers cursing in their videos and playing certain video games. And it's like, if you don't want your child to see that stuff, then you should put the proper parental controls and you should monitor what your child is watching. You can't put it all on these people. Yes, a lot of times kids tend to gravitate towards content that they probably shouldn't be, and they tend to look up to and watch certain people that may not be the best role model. But a lot of times people don't ask to be role model for children, and then that may not even be the audience that they are aiming towards. And you know, that's the other thing too, is like, for some celebrities and influencers, they didn't intend on their audience being children. Like, the type of content that they make is for adults, but for some reason children gravitated towards it, and so it just kind of naturally happened that way. And some influencers recognize this and they try to adjust because they know kids are watching, but others don't, and that's their right if they want to keep their content for adults. But I think what we really need to talk about is the fact that, like, who do kids really have to look up to? Like, if you were to shut them out from people like Ice Spice, you know, people like her, who's the alternative? And I really had to sit back and think, like, who are the kid-friendly role models of today? Like, when you put that question in front of you and you really think about it and you really marinate on it, who do they have? Like, who do the kids of today have? You know what I mean? Because back in the day, listen, like, sometimes I get upset and I start to, like, miss kind of like what we had back in the day, because we had those people growing up. And just to name a few, right? But also I should probably get into why I'm making this video, right? So what prompted this video is me seeing all the conversation around Northwest hanging out with Ice Spice. Initially, I didn't see anything wrong with it necessarily, but when people started to kind of break down, because again, disclaimer, I don't listen to Ice Spice, okay? Unpopular opinion, y'all know me, I'm not one to typically follow trends. I like who I like, and I don't like what I don't like. I don't really care for Ice Spice like that. I mean, I think she's all right. Like, she doesn't seem like a bad person. Like, her personality is fun and everything. But you're not gonna sit up here and tell me that Ice Spice is the greatest rapper alive. And the way people have acted as if Ice Spice just makes this amazing music and she can spit and she's one of the best rappers out here, it's laughable to me at this point, but I just let y'all do y'all, because it's just funny to me how people will continue to complain about how music is so trash nowadays, and people hate music today, but then they support music that comes from Ice Spice. But whatever, if you like her, cool. So Ice Spice was hanging out with Northwest, and at first I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But then people started to point out, like, Ice Spice tends to sexualize herself a lot in her music, in her dance moves. Like, she's always, shaking her behind on camera. And so if that's the type of content that Northwest is consuming from Ice Spice, then that can be problematic, because you don't want that type of imagery being shown to your child. Now, do I think someone like a Kim Kardashian cares about something like that? Probably not. But then you really have to think, like, okay, if Northwest sorry, because I'm thinking about Northwest in that Ice Spice wig. But if you don't want someone like Northwest at her age, I think she's like 8 or 9 years old, if you don't want her looking up to Ice Spice, and you don't want other kids looking up to Ice Spice, what's the alternative? Like, who do they have? Because back in the day, we had a selection, and I wrote down a few. There's way more than this, but here's just a few of the kid friendly. We're gonna stick to musical artists, right? Cause, oh yeah, also too, what also prompted this video. Sorry, I'm gonna get into my list. What also prompted this video is Lil Baby. So Lil Baby performed at the Kids Choice Awards. Now, let that sink in for a minute. Lil Baby. If you listen to Lil Baby, you know what he typically raps about. You know what his songs typically sound like. So you would think, like, when you think like Lil Baby performing at the Kids Choice Awards, like, you're just like, how did that even happen? How did he even get booked for a Kids Choice Awards? Out of all the people that are available, you chose him. But then you have to think, who else? Who's the kid-friendly rapper of today that could perform at a Kids Choice Awards? And so I pulled together a list of who we had growing up. Now, I know that I'm technically Gen Z. I fall within Gen Z by like this much. So I can't say like, oh, these were the artists of Gen Z's generation. Well, I guess you maybe could, because apparently Gen Z goes up to 2010. And I don't think kids born in 2010 were listening to these artists. But if you know, you know. If you are in your late teens, early 20s, you know about these people that I'm about to list. And so, we had Big Time Rush. We had Hannah Montana. We had Demi Lovato, OMG Girls, Selena Gomez, Hilary Duff. Okay? Hilary Duff, High School Musical, I know y'all remember Trevor Jackson, Diggy Simmons, and that's just a few. And they stayed. They stayed on my playlist. They stayed on my little MP3 player. Back in the day, we had to like upload the music to the MP3. Like, those are the kind of artists that we had. And I would consider those artists to be kid friendly in the sense that they weren't talking about anything inappropriate. They weren't doing anything inappropriate. Yeah, some of these artists may have had news come out about them, but funny enough, I didn't find out a lot of the problematic things with these artists until I got older. I didn't even see a lot of what was occurring with these artists when I was a kid. I guess my mom did a good job at hiding a lot of those stories, like rumors of people being on drugs and like nude photos, like all of that like crazy news. It never got brought to my attention, so I only saw them for how they presented themselves as an artist, and some of them as Disney stars, as Nickelodeon stars. And that's the thing, it's like Disney and Nickelodeon had everybody in a chokehold for the longest time. Like, everybody had music, especially Disney. Disney did a phenomenal job back in the day of creating artists on, I want to say, even a global scale, at least for, again, like kids, because we all were listening to that stuff. I still have songs in my phone today. I will pull up my Spotify. I'll pull, because I literally have songs from that time period that I'll listen to periodically just for nostalgia's sake. I see right here, Countdown, Victorious. I know Victorious had everybody. Victorious had some of the best. So I don't care what no one say. Victorious had some of the best songs during that time period, and it was all kid friendly. They were, you know, someone that probably could have performed at a Kids Choice Awards, and it would have been perfectly fine. You have Bridget Mendler, Lemonade Mouth. You had so many. Kiki Palmer used to write music back in the day. Ashley Tisdale had music back in the day. Corbin Blue, Run It Back Again. Like, we had some amazing music, but also just amazing role models to look up to that, you know, were great influences to have if you were to have a role model. And people say all the time, like, oh, you shouldn't idolize anybody. They're children. Children are going to idolize people, whether it's a celebrity, whether it's their parents, whether it's a teacher. That's just what happens. Kids are very impressionable, and so they're gonna have people that they look up to. That's just, you can't really avoid that. Now, of course, as you get older, you come to realize that you shouldn't idolize people because you realize everyone is flawed, and you shouldn't be following behind anybody to where you're trying to be like them. You realize that as you get older, but when you're a kid, it's gonna happen. Kids have posters on their walls of celebrities that they idolize. It happens. But I think it is up to the parents to determine who those people are that their kids are looking up to. But again, that begs the question, who are the kid-friendly artists of today that kids have to look up to? Where's the kid-friendly content that kids can look forward to? We see all these reboots happening of all the shows that we grew up off on. But it's like, where's like the original content? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not there. And so it's like, on one hand, I understand that, like, you know, again, someone like Ice Spice, Lil Baby, whoever, they shouldn't necessarily be idols for children because of the content that they rap about or sing about. Who do they have? Who would you pick? Like, who could fill those shoes? Who are the Hannah Montanas of the day? Who are the Diggy Simmons of today? Like, who are those people? Like, I just don't see it. I don't really see it. And I think it makes me wonder too, like, if there are artists that could have been that, but because of society, they felt pressure to, you know, grow up faster than they should have, and, you know, present themselves as more grown than kid friendly. Because even too, like, because we talk about this too, about how a lot of female artists and a lot of female rappers, they all kind of go through the same thing of, like, let me get a BBL, let me be over sexualized, let me talk about sex in all of my music. There's no, like, variety anymore in music today that, you know, gets mainstream play. And so it's like, because even too, like, I'll say for me, like, I used to watch the Rap Game, right? I used to watch the Rap Game on Lifetime, where they had kid rappers that were rapping to kid audiences. And I remember, like, JD would constantly say, like, look, like, you have to remember the audience that you are catering towards. You're catering towards children, so you need to keep your image youthful. But almost all those artists from that show, they all immediately went that route. A lot of the female artists, they became very sexualized. If you go, I'm not gonna name names, but literally look up some of the old Rap Game contestants. Like, almost all the females, I want to say with the exception of maybe Detronada, and granted, I don't keep up with, like, every single one of them, like, all the time, constantly, unless I really like them, like a Detronada and like a Lil Key, the ones that I really, really liked. Outside of that, I don't really keep tabs on them like that. But literally all of them, with the exception of, like, Detronada and Tally, I think. All the other ones, super sexualized. Like, you go and you look at, like, what they're wearing in their music videos, what they're rapping about. They all are kind of going down the same path. You see Lotto and how she's kind of presenting herself now. All of her content is super duper sexualized. And then when you have the male side of things, again, with the exception of a few, a lot of them kind of ended up doing the same thing, like getting into drugs, what was that one guy that won? I can't remember his name, but he beat Detronada that season, which I was pissed about. But he ended up getting the deal with JD. He never even put out music because I think he had got hooked on drugs, and like, you know, they all kind of fall into that same path, and it just, and you know, and that again is why, you know, kids maybe shouldn't idolize certain people, but they started out as kid friendly artists, and then, and I understand people grow up too, right? Like they're not all at that same age. Like it's been several years since the rap game premiered. A lot of them have grown up and become adults and become, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21, you know, now. And so I do expect their content to change. I don't expect them to stick to that audience necessarily. But yeah, it's just like, again, it's like, who do the kids listen to now? Like, who do they listen to nowadays? Like, you don't really have that. Like I said, Disney isn't really producing artists like that. I don't really know what's going on with that. I know Disney's trying to be more inclusive and they're making certain moves and stuff like that, but yeah, like they aren't really producing artists like that. And Nickelodeon, they had a few that they were able to produce. I don't think Jonas Brothers, I think the Jonas Brothers were popular before. Oh no, was Jonas Brothers, no, Jonas Brothers was Disney. That was Disney. Nickelodeon had Big Time Rush, right? They had Big Time Rush. They had Victorious. Ariana Grande got her start on Victorious, so I guess you can consider her to be a Nickelodeon star that grew. She had music, her own solo music through them at some point. But yeah, even that, like, okay, maybe I'll say Ariana Grande. I think, but not even Ariana Grande though, because Ariana Grande, if you listen to her past couple of albums, her content has started to get more grown. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of this, by the way. I'm not saying that these artists are wrong for evolving in their content and making their content more adult like. I'm just saying that, like, what we had and the type of music and stuff that we had to listen to, I don't think kids have that anymore. There is no, yeah, we have Kids Bop, but please. Kids Bop is so cringy. And I don't know any kids that actually listen to Kids Bop. I'm surprised Kids Bop is still a thing, because I don't know any kids that are listening to Kids Bop. Like, even when I was like in middle school and elementary school, we would have like little like school dances, and you would have like the DJs playing music. They never not once played Kids Bop. Like, no one plays Kids Bop. Like, ever. And so yeah, I say all that to say I get the overall concern that children are being exposed to people, to influencers, to music that is very adult like, and that us as a society should be doing better to protect them from that. But it's like, again, what are the other options? What are the other options? You know? But yeah, food for thought. That's my take on it. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments down below. Let me know if you guys can think of some actual kid-friendly artists that are relevant, that kids would actually listen to, that could perform at a Kids' Choice Awards. And also let me know what you think about someone like Ice Spice influencing Northwest and Lil Baby performing at the Kids' Choice Awards. Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video.